Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller. Brought to you by GrowthExpertz. You are in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right, everybody. Thanks and welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lee Miller, also known as AndrewStartups. And it is International Women's Day. And I didn't actually align this on purpose, but it really works out because I have an international woman founder on the show. Louise Thomas is the founder and CEO of AirTrack Labs. They've just raised an undisclosed amount of money in the UK to basically educate the whole world on what I believe is one of the biggest problems facing humanity, air quality and air pollution. And I'm super excited because I stalked her and followed her on the internet until she agreed to come on the show, because it's a problem that's near and dear to my heart as a global world traveler. Some of the best places to live in the world have the worst air quality, and it's like almost scary seeing no one pay attention to it. But if longevity is something that you're interested in, I think air quality is a huge factor in where you live. And if you look at those blue zones, Louise, I'm sure you know what that is. You see that they're all like close to the beach in like not super populated cities. So we know air quality is massively important. And Louise is someone who is trying to make that at the forefront. So Louise, thank you so much for being here.
No, great pleasure. Thank you.
Amazing. So tell us about AirTrack Labs. I know you have a software product called AirTrack, which is basically designed to help the individual person get like personalized air quality updates, because I follow AQI stuff. You search your city name, you go on Google, and it gives you a random reading. I'm in Mexico City right now. I won't even slander the city by telling what the reading is, but it's somewhere around like New Delhi vibes. So it's pretty bad. But so what does AirTrack and AirTrack Labs do that isn't publicly available from just like a website, like an AQI index thing?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, let's start from the big picture. So, as you say, air quality is a huge issue for humanity. It's the greatest environmental threat to health. It's the second biggest impact on long-term health across the board. People talk about leading to 8 million deaths worldwide every year. So the stats are just huge, and yeah, you would think that it would get a bit more attention, as you say. So yeah, and I think the way that most people access air quality information, if they do, is probably via maybe a weather app. They might see a AQI, an air quality index score, which will be different in different countries, is what yet another challenge. But it will usually be maybe a score between 1 and 10, with low figures being better for you. But one of the challenges is that there's really no safe level of air pollution to live in. World Health Organization talks about 99% of the world's population living in areas that exceed their limits. So what we try and do through AirTrack is to basically help you make the best of the situation that you find yourself in. You know, you might be in Mexico City, you might be in New Delhi, you might be in London, even in a more rural location. And we want to help you find ways to reduce your air pollution exposure, because even if we can do that to 10%, 20%, given the risks that are involved in being exposed to pollution, we think that's worth doing. So yeah, so the product AirTrack, it integrates with Strava. It's available as a free product and then a premium level to get more detailed insights. It's a web application at the moment, and then we're going to be launching our mobile app within the next month or so. So very exciting to be able to get to more people and include more features and so on. But yeah, we can come on to that.
Interesting. Well, perfect timing for you to come on a marketing podcast if you're launching a mobile app. It's a massive marketing undertaking, and it's totally different than anything on the web. I mean, like search and even advertising and everything is very different for mobile. but also the amount of data that you'll get and like being able to know where people are and getting their location data. I would imagine with a mobile app, you'll be able to help them a lot more. Um, I mean, 8 million deaths a year is insanely staggering. Those are like COVID numbers. So it's like actually an epidemic that no one's talking about. And
Yeah.
that's what's so scary to me. So, before we go, just as a air quality nerd, where are the worst places and the best places on the planet right now to live as far as air quality? I mean, you're the expert at this and living in this. So where do you live?
Um, so, so I'm in London. I reckon it's how this is an art we're good, right? Which is, I mean, it's got a lot better, but it's still, yeah, we still see very high levels of nitrogen dioxide being registered, and then particulate matter can be quite a difficult pollutant to deal with because it spreads quite far, but we see very high episodes of particulate matter from time to time in London as well. So yeah, it's far from perfect, but as I say, is improving. The Sadly, the worst places are probably in northern India and Pakistan, where at the same time as being particularly bad on air pollution, are also obviously the places where literally billions of people are living. So the impact of all of that is enormous. Um, I don't. The best places to live, I have to say, I haven't done a global review within Europe. Scandinavian countries come out the best, which probably wouldn't surprise you too much.
No, is it
Sure about
directly related to just low population, or is it like an education thing or an industry thing? Because obviously in northern India and Pakistan, there's like a ton of manufacturing and
Mm.
like maybe not the best labor practices as well. And so I think that could maybe affect like the the policies, I guess, which we won't get into too deeply. But
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
is that a factor?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, industry, manufacturing, also transport. A continuation of diesel or even petrol obviously has impacts. But the additional thing that they're dealing with in around Delhi and Islamabad and other major cities across that region is stubble burning of fields. So it tends to get much worse in the autumn when farmers start to burn their crops at the end of the season.
It's true.
So it's kind of a combination of all sorts of things, which does make like policy decisions quite difficult about what you're going to tackle first.
Interesting.
Um,
No, I think that somebody out there should make like a Zillow or I don't know what you have in the UK. I can't remember off the top of my head, but a property searching website where it's only like really high air quality. I do believe in the future that will be a major deciding factor for migration,
mm,
and people will want. I mean, when you have the capacity and financial freedom. I mean, obviously, certain people in those areas that we mentioned are just there trying to survive, and air quality is not the top mind when you're hungry.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do think that there should be some way to highlight. I mean, maybe that's a potential marketing opportunity for Air Awares, like giving cities awards. Whenever I have worked with any kind of like destination management organization, they're the marketing organizations of every city. Anytime you can give them something that's PR worthy, they're gonna eat it up. And
Mm,
so that could be a good marketing opportunity, which we'll talk about later.
yeah.
First,
Yeah.
you don't have a background in tech startups, which most people do. So I would imagine it was a big uphill battle to learn all of this stuff, but you were able to raise this capital in not so easy of a time. And obviously, the UK is much different than Silicon Valley, where I sit, which, by the way, is amazing air quality. We have the longest life expectancy in the United States. There's only one small county of super wealthy people that's a little bit higher, but we have a very unique air quality situation because of this fog that constantly is cleaning the air out. I know San Francisco is pretty
Yeah.
amazing. It's like a 20 on the AQI. But yeah, sorry to go off track there, but what can you share about the fundraising process? Like, what did you learn that might help other female founders specifically since it's International Women's Day? Let's focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually the second time today when I've been asked for advice, particularly for female founders in terms of fundraising. And I actually think I'm not sure that the specific advice for women, other than that it's much harder. So you've just like obviously just got to take all the possible advice and processes and evidence and everything that you can possibly bring together and just do it more. But it's obviously it's a very tough environment. I mean, I think the UK is seen to be uh, reasonably sort of buoyant in terms of Europe, but is clearly like investors are much more risk averse in the UK compared to the US, is what I hear. Um, so even when you're raising pre-seed, which would usually be considered to be, we invest in the idea, we invest in the team. Uh, Not from what we've seen. We didn't really land very much until we had product and revenue and like real proof points that we could point people to. Possibly, maybe that would have been easier if we were second time founders, and it just needed to get to that point. But we had like I guess 6 months of the fundraise that was quite difficult. Not really. I mean, lots of interest, but nobody really putting checks down. And then we launched our product, as I said, in September, got that like very early revenue. And then we started to see it come together, which was a relief, because it's really hard when you've never done it before and everyone tells you, you're going to get 99 no's before you get a yes. And you're like, okay, I understand that theoretically. But when you're in the midst of those 99 no's and you have no idea if a yes is coming or if it's just going to keep it,
So harsh.
it's really, really, really hard. So,
What were
um,
absolutely, and I have stopped over the last few episodes, but in the first dozen or so, I asked everyone at the beginning, how many calls or individual relationships did you have to build to get that first check?
yeah, I mean, I haven't listed the calls. I would say they're probably around 100. What I do have is because I heard you asking like what sort of system people have. I have a Google Doc which runs to about 140 pages. There's basically an enormous table, and I just rely on being able to search it. A- And notes on like everyone we've tried, how far we got. Like, yeah, like about
Well,
100 pages.
that is
So
major persistence. That is crazy, but also at the same time, you are building something to help the world, and that is super motivating. I don't think a lot of founders that are just like, "Oh, we're going to make so much money," can take the 99 no's. But if you're really like,
yeah,
this is a
we
huge
believe in
problem,
it.
8 million people are dying every year, nobody's focusing on it, and we need to help people, then you can get up and you can do those 18-hour days. And I think that's a great example of that because, I think you came from working in politics, but which we're not going to talk about
Well,
before,
no,
but
not politics, really. Government. So like
government. Okay.
public service, let's say, is a sort of
To a dude like me, that's the same thing. I don't know the difference, but my point is like that tends to be very slow moving, bureaucratic. It's not like the world depends on you. Like you can take a sick day or something, and the thing keeps moving. Whereas CEO of a company that is raising money and building an MVP, it's like the whole thing depends on you. So it is a total different side of the brain and different experience. And I give you a lot of respect for making it
yeah.
even to this far because it it beats people up. And
Mm.
how did you know that you wanted to become an entrepreneur and start something like and not stick around in the comfy uh, you know, large environment that you were in before?
Okay, I'm gonna have to disagree a bit with the with the painting of the picture of working government. I mean, maybe I had a week or two over my 20-year-old career in government when I was sort of trying to work out, what's my, do I have a sort of to-do list that's longer than a bit of paper or, whatever. Most of the time it's as hectic as it comes, to be honest. And yeah, so and a few people have said, like at least at the very start, said to me, "Oh, how are you coping with the pace of startup life?" Like,
This is easy.
honestly, really, yeah. I mean, at the least, I think maybe a bit of the difference is that it's like forward momentum. Obviously, you have like backward steps, but you can see, okay, last month I was here, now I'm this many further steps ahead, now I'm another further steps ahead. Whereas in government, it can be a little bit of going around in circles, but that doesn't stop it being hectic and busy and overwhelming at times.
I got it.
So yeah, so that's I wouldn't say it's different particularly on those kind of on that basis.
No,
But
that's awesome to know. You're made for this, baby. If you've been in a hectic environment for 20 years, then this is no big difference. But yeah,
and
the cool thing
just
about
about
working
survived. Yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing about working in tech and be at your own startup is, every day there should be at least one small win that can like
Yeah.
keep you motivated. And so those can be things like super tiny. I mean, you know, uh, in San Francisco we say chief everything officer, CEOs. So the win could be like, I got the rent down on our office $200 a month or something like really small. That's not necessarily as related to the product, but I want to talk a little bit more about AirTrack. So I got the idea, obviously get the mission. I signed up myself. Can we talk a little bit about the technology that's there? Like, again, I want to know how does this product help me more than just going to Google or ChatGPT or something? What is the product doing for me?
Yeah. So, I mean, the real extra thing that we brought in is that it attaches directly to your GPS. So initially we pull that GPS from Strava, but with the mobile app, we'll be able to have its own tracking and also pull from Apple Health and others as we go along. So, and the reason why we've gone down that route is I think one thing that people don't realize until they look into it is how much the air pollution varies across a geographical location. So particularly gases like nitrogen dioxide, they from one street to the next, depending on traffic and other things, the differences can be huge. Maybe up to like 50% difference in the concentrations in places. So and if all that you're presented with is a sort of general screen on your weather app or wherever you go that just says, gives you a sort of vaguely green color or a vaguely orange color or something, you're never going to know that. So so we're about like basically taking that insight into what is actually going on in the real world and then translating it into a digital product that can help people to reduce their
Got it.
exposure.
Okay, here goes some free marketing advice. I'm ready to start now. And then I think
Cool.
it's hyper local
Yeah.
air quality insight. I think that is the unique thing. Hyper local. I didn't see it on your website at all, but that does really make sense. Like,
Mm,
and then from the hyper local, it makes it a call to the user to attach their location data and be
mm,
like, you have to give up your location data to get this incredible insight. And it's
mhm,
the world's first hyper local air quality indexing tool or air quality tracking tool. That becomes a big PR opportunity, really makes people understand. If I saw that, and then I think that'll also help people move forwards to a paying plan because you can easily paywall. Like, we can go down to the 60 meter for free, but if you want like hyper local down to the 10 meter, you have to pay for it. Or I saw that. I mean, so just so everyone knows that there's a free plan and then there's a paid plan. I think it's
yeah.
20 quid a month. And
It's 2.99,
yeah, there you go.
but you got the quid right.
Yeah, yeah. 2.99, like 3 pounds a month.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was way off. So 20 quid a year then, or a little bit over that. So yeah, that's super affordable to be able to get hyper local insight into how healthy I'm being on my daily commute to work. And so I think another thing to help people pay is maybe recommendations. So,
Mm,
which I think you could easily do with AI. Like, if I'm going down the faster road to work, but it's really poor air quality, it suggests a different route that adds a little bit of time, but then you can reduce your air quality exposure 20%. Do you do that? Do you make recommendations for people on
So
the free plan?
that is the next in our product development. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that users tell us all the time, that they'd love to get these clean air routes for sure. In terms of like promoting it, I would also just say there's many occasions when it's not actually going to be a route that takes you longer, because this is a bit of pushback we get, like, oh, of course I'd go for miles that way just in order to get, well, actually there have been some good academic studies on this. For in many cases, if you're doing like an hour's commute on a bike, say, there will be cleaner routes by quite a margin that actually don't take any longer. You might even find they're shorter.
Probably more fun on a bike.
More fun. You're not stopping in traffic lights everywhere. Well, it's sort of different setup in the US, but in the UK, on a main road, you'll be stopping at a traffic light like every few hundred meters, and actually it needn't be like that. And so we want to make those, it all be a much more positive experience. It's
Amazing.
not about
I'm hearing so many marketing opportunities. Anytime
Yeah.
when your company has unique data, you have a lot of marketing opportunities. So I think the first thing I want to say, when your company is ready, is to like obviously put out reports on, like if you're comfortable doing like hyper local reports, like any location is going to promote that. If, I'm from a small town in Ohio that has like incredible air
Mhm.
quality because it's only like 30,000 cars in the whole town. And, we have the largest Irish festival in the world outside of Ireland. That's the only news story of the year that they get. So if you it's great. It's great. I grew up in, an Irish neighborhood, but nobody's Irish. It's just the name. But anyway, if you gave that city, which you could do pretty quickly with AI, like all the top 100 cities in America and the UK and anywhere you want, and you award those cities and they get like a badge for air quality based on,
Mm.
the hyperlocal info that you have, then I think that would lead to a lot of blog articles and links and PR and marketing. But
Mm.
the same thing goes with, like company. Like if a company paid for, and I don't know, I always love B2B a lot. Like I started my career in B2C. It is an uphill battle. I think as you are already noticing, like to get someone to spend 2 quid is harder than their company to spend 200 pounds a month for 100 employees to have access to the tool. So I do think there'll be a B2B aspect for this business as well, because companies want to show that they're taking care of their employees and they can
Mhm.
invest in this, and then the employees get the tool to optimize their commutes to being healthier in their life. And so it's like a cheap way that a company can like increase the health of their employees, increase the love and I don't know, the we love you factor of the company. But then also you can give awards to healthy workplaces, like, hey, we're tracking you guys with Strava. This is the healthiest, according to our data, workplace in the UK, and then they're just going to promote that. And the more,
Yeah.
oh yeah, bit of competition as well, but
Hmm.
the more you can, I mean, marketing is like psychological at some point. If your product can make other people look good, I mean, yes, of course, it's important, the longevity and the health aspect.
Mhm.
The company, should I really say that? The company absolutely cares about their employees, I'll say on video, you know what I mean? But when we stop recording, I'll say that they care a lot about looking good and retaining talent and marketing to people that they're a forward-thinking, modern working environment. And I think that data that you have can do so many interesting things for cities, for workplaces. I mean, you could have a leaderboard for the city. I mean, for by city or by country for individual people. There is a movement for longevity happening in San Francisco. That's a little strange too. It's the guy that started a big finance app in America has a documentary on Netflix called "Don't Die." Have you seen that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't, but I think I've heard. Yeah, I think I've heard about it. Yeah,
Won't
yeah.
won't talk too much about him, but he is experimenting on his body about longevity and like all kinds of unique drugs and things like that. Never once have I heard him talk about air quality. So I think that could be an interesting person to reach out to because maybe as an investor in the future and anything. But I think where was I going with this? I very rarely lose my train of thought, Louise, but I think I may have. He has a leaderboard for a whole world
Okay.
of people who are optimizing their longevity, who are reducing their biological age the most, and he is now number 2.
Wow. Yeah.
Superhuman is probably too complimentary. I think it's like it's gamification at its best, but like also you're trusting the data more than like how people feel or look. Like he looks like very unhealthy.
Uh,
You know what I mean? So he has reduced his liver's biological age, but at what result? Like being translucent and sleeping at 8 p.m. and only eating like liquid foods or something. But
yeah.
so my point is that I have heard a lot of people joining in on this because of that leaderboard. So if there was a leaderboard, again with Strava, really easy to have a leaderboard and not trying to just give you more stuff to build. I'm sure you've got a large roadmap, but sometimes these are like simple engineering as marketing. I'll put engineering as marketing
Yeah.
tasks. Engineering as marketing means like if I can convince an engineer on a weekend to build something that I know I can turn into a really big marketing initiative. And I think many times that has worked for me has been when I have worked with engineers. We have a lot of unique data and we create an interactive map or a leaderboard or something like that. So I don't know, is that something you guys have thought about in the past?
Yeah, I mean, definitely things like kind of corporate challenges and that sort of thing. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we haven't implemented it yet, but it's something that we're
It's
thinking
early
about.
days.
I mean, on the point about employers and their concern about well-being and so on. I don't know if you've got any thoughts because we have been investigating that and try sort of dipping our toes into that water. I don't know if you've got any thoughts about like breaking down, prioritizing amongst the obviously, like, hundreds and thousands of potential companies we could go to, should we go for the biggest ones, the ones that are, like, particularly promoting their green credentials? Any thoughts on how we would prioritize?
That's a great question. Yes, I love this, and it's going to get a little bit nerdy. So there's what's called the top. So there's targeting, and then targeting inside of the organization, and then targeting with
Mhm.
like organization size and industry. And I think the it's like a small number is enough test. Like if I reach out to 50 companies that have a green initiative and I don't get any response, I don't think that's the lever that's going to lead to it. So it's a weekend, do some outreach. I think another lever is companies that have won like Great Places to Work awards, like things like that, because those are companies that are striving to be the winner at everything as far as their employees see. So they're likely to be like, oh, this is 500 quid a month and I can get this for my whole team. And then they all get, the usage and the adoption is not as high as you think. That's why I know from selling stuff like not like this, but to the same target, it's a PR initiative is what they really want. They want to show that this company is the first company in the UK to help their employees stay safe on their commute from terrible air quality. And like they don't have to do anything. They just pay you and then you give license codes to all the employees. And then maybe you have a 1 hour or an online pre-recorded session to show the employees how to set up their dashboard and how to set up their Strava. You could also partner with Strava if you haven't thought of that already, to include in a package where they buy a Strava for each employee, and then you obviously get a commission on that as well, which is probably gonna be just as high as the actual cost of the product, the digital product.
Yeah.
So one is try based on like the levers like that you mentioned, and then two is by company size. When you reach out to a bigger company, they tend to move slower, larger deal cycle, but then when they close, um, it becomes a lot often close after that. It's like, oh, we're already working with, uh, you know, uh, I don't know, I can't think of a company in the UK, David Lloyd's Gyms or something like that. I don't know why that came to mind. It's a great gym. Shout out to David Lloyd though, but um, so the top down often goes, I'm sorry, the larger company often goes slower, but the smaller companies, you can get some good data, some good case studies, they close faster, and then you can use that to close the bigger companies. So I would actually go for the under 100 employee size in the beginning because I think you can close those. It's not a super expensive thing, 500 pounds a month or something. And they're going to be, but that's a significant influx of revenue and data and testing for you. And then if the product is really amazing, you turn all those individual employees into referral agents. They get an automated email, refer a person and we'll give you a month free, or like you move up that gamified leaderboard, because in a pyramid scheme of helping people, you get like, if someone else reduces their exposure underneath you, you move up that
Yeah, yeah.
gamified. You've removed this many tons of CO2 from the lungs of this many people, or whatever. Um, and then inside of the organization, there's a top-down approach or a bottoms-up approach. So top-down goes straight to Louise, the CEO. She's busy. She's not going to respond as much, but when she does, she doesn't need to get approval from anyone. So she has full authority to make it a company-wide thing. And so that's kind of like the same as reaching out to the big companies. You reach out to a bunch of CEOs, you don't get a lot of responses unless it's like really top of mind for someone. And so bottoms up approach would be the individual employee, the HR leader in the company, the chief of staff, someone that is like, we need this for our employees, and then they just need to get the approval. But all they need is that one meeting and CEO goes yes. And I think like with something this low cost and high reward, again, it's the PR opportunity for the company. And then if there's a benefit to the employees, great, which I assume there is. Um, but
Yeah.
it's pretty early days to see so far. But I think, yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
it's kind
I
of,
mean, I think what we found from doing this kind of reach out is that there's a lot of education to start off with. So it's like often people just, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, because like why would they? But people just haven't thought about it, and it's the conversation takes a while to work out. Okay, so oh yeah, I can see how it would fit to that initiative we've got. I can see how it would help this problem that we've got. But it's not like a slam dunk. Our finance system is broken. Please sell me a new finance system, or whatever. They just wouldn't have thought about it until we've come to them. So it takes a while. Yeah.
that's a great segue into my next suggestion. So when that's a problem, then would focus on PR and public relations stuff first. And
Mhm.
then when you have all that content, like podcast interviews like this, even more targeted to like HR and,
Mhm.
like health related podcasts, I think. Um, but so there's podcasts, there's articles and interviews, there is conferences and speaking engagements, and then there's like social media content that you put out yourselves. If you do focus on this over the next few months, which again, it's easier said than done. You need a full-time person in the company to focus on it, or a consultancy or someone to take it over. But if you get, 3 to 5 good speaking gigs at
Mhm.
specific business conferences or health conferences or both, you kind of spray and pray a little bit to
Mhm.
really see what
Mhm.
really works. But a solid article in the Daily Mail talking about, this woman quit her cushy job in the government to save us all from bad air quality with hyperlocal feed insight into how healthy we are. And then like it's just going to blow people's mind, but that's going to bring a lot of inbound interest. And then you have to have processes and systems set up in the company to then like, what I think you can have a lot of automation, like, you know, um, a pre-recorded demo, a pre-recorded 1 hour session where you educate people on the problem and everything. And then that takes less of your time.
Yeah.
But with all that content, when you're doing let's imagine for 6 months you focus on the PR stuff, then you go back to that outreach, people get a message from you, they go to Google and they see all this stuff. Even a lot of times now I'm seeing people ask ChatGPT. I get about 2 or 3 messages a month. Hey, we want to work with your company. We asked ChatGPT what the best digital marketing agency for startups is in San Francisco or in America or whatever. And we're coming up with a list because
Mhm.
it's parsing through all of that content that we created for the last decade. And then obviously reviews on other unbiased sites that we did not write ourselves. No, I'm kidding. Uh, um, but you have to take everything from ChatGPT with a grain of salt, and Google. But my point is, when there's a lot of other linking, especially authoritative websites, like maybe more than the Daily Mail, it just came to mind, but
Mhm.
um, then they trust the company and they go, okay, yeah, I want to learn more about what you say. And then when they come inbound through those things, they often are already pre-sold because it's almost like word of mouth. They've read all this stuff. They saw a TED Talk. I mean, you should absolutely be trying to do a TED Talk London or something about, because again, I don't know if I coined it, but I think this idea of hyper local AQI, you invented it. So it doesn't exist anywhere else. And actually, I have been thinking, I was staying in a more rural part of Mexico a long time ago or during the pandemic. And the AQI was always like 3 to 5 because it was a really small. But then if I went on a run, I couldn't even breathe because of certain streets, like you said, that they had industrial traffic and trucks going down. So it's really hits home for me what you said about the hyper local being. I mean, the other data is not that relevant. You could be in the worst part of town, but in a green city, and you have no idea that you're actually harming yourself. And so I think it's a big marketing initiative, but you should be the voice of hyper local data on air quality around the world. And yeah, so I think that's probably the first place to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. No, I like the idea of the pre-recorded, kind of videos. I think we're also thinking about other like more educational things, like kind of quizzes within the app and that sort of thing, just to like just get people thinking about it, learning as they go, to sort of guess a bit of inspiration from Duolingo, which lots of people take inspiration from, but kind of keep on feeding stuff and asking them to engage back to you and so on.
Yeah, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit on that. Like Duolingo has a very different value proposition. It's like you're going to learn this language, whereas the challenge that you're up against is this kind of the same as policymakers in the world about global warming. Like the human brain isn't really designed to worry about long-term threats. We think about like immediate threats to steal our food as a hunter-gatherer or whatever. And so you have to scare people, which is a whole nother marketing tactic that absolutely works. I mean, it's a real fear. You should be scared of the air quality that you're living around because literally millions of people die a year about it. So it wouldn't be crazy for you to use that to really make people interested. But one thing I definitely try to caution founders against is adding too many things to do in the product that are not like, I think educating the consumer makes sense, but you actually want them to be educated enough before they get the product. So
Yeah.
you could have a couple courses, like again, those are great things to put in the paywall, like one free 30-second video. Hi, I'm Louise. Today we're going to talk about what is the difference of the normal AQI and hyper local. And then like the next videos are grayed out with a little lock icon over it, and you have to move to pro, and it teaches you, how to optimize your commute. How to, I know that this company's not really focused on indoor air quality, but I think if you're really, it's part of the same mission of helping people
Absolutely. Yeah.
over the course of their lives. And then that's obviously another revenue opportunity is here's some products that we recommend with an affiliate relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and, you're indoors more than you're outdoors, probably if you're most people, unless you're like someone in Northern India, like working in the fields or something. But,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
No,
that,
exactly. I mean, the statistic is usually quoted is 90% of your time indoors, but then what's also quoted is that 30% of your exposure to air pollution is on the daily commute. So obviously that adds up to more than 100, but the difference is because just you're breathing more quickly, you're taking on more air. So the commute is a big deal.
ugh,
Yeah.
and I haven't worked in an office in a decade, but I ride my bike to co-working spaces and stuff like that. And when you mentioned like stopping at the lights, like I literally just go like this and hope that this makes a small bit of
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it
Yeah. But
doesn't,
I mean,
but I think,
yeah.
go ahead.
We do kind of on the point about scaring people. I mean, obviously we present the data, so and some of it is scary, uh, but our kind of company values is not about scaring. So I mean, it's
Of
interesting.
course.
What we want to be more is about empowering, finding the best choices possible for you.
Fair.
Reducing your exposure by a percentage in order to protect your health. So
And that's amazing, but anytime you are the first mover, you're literally inventing this category, you have to spend a lot of time and effort on education, and I do think that staggering statistic of 8 million people known deaths per year, It's probably double that of people with, that are smoking on top of being in bad air. I see that in Mexico City. I walk by people smoking cigarettes and I'm like, oh my God, I feel for you. My point is, don't shy away from the fear thing. It's not a negative thing. It's a positive. You are trying to save lives, and fear is a great motivator. Fear of not looking cool is what Nike markets their products for. It's not like that. It's just actually something that people need and they need to care about. And so I do think that scaring the shit out of them is important because it is a scary thing. And if you're not focused on it, yet you're going to the gym every day, you're eating really healthy, and you don't realize that this is this large macroeconomic thing. I think a lot of people think they don't have any control either. I live in a city. I can't uproot my family. But what this tool, AirTrack, does is show you that you can reduce up to 30% of your exposure pretty much instantly. And that's really amazing. So don't be scared of the scaring people. I think that we need that. We need to be scared into caring about stuff. Like I am the friend that shames people out of smoking. We have like a really big anti-tobacco thing in San Francisco, but then I go to other parts of the world or other parts of even the US and people still smoke like around others. And I am the person that's like,
Yeah.
telling them, we have like 500,000 deaths a year in the United States from tobacco. Probably have more from air quality, more than so,
Definitely.
so that stat alone, if I tell people, 500,000 people like die from smoking a year in the United States, like, so I think the scare tactics work. So don't shy away from that. So in retrospect, I would say, double down on your data and using that for PR. I think like you should be the voice of this hyperlocal air quality thing. Speaking at conferences, getting on targeted and more targeted podcasts. Thank you for this being on this, but it's only startup founders that are going to listen. But I still think it's super great advice across the board on powering through, staying positive through the 100+ no's that you get, and just really being motivated by your mission is what I'm taking away from this. So Louise, tell everybody where they can find out about you and the company if they're interested in learning more.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are airawarelabs.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, a bit on TikTok, but we're trying to kind of prioritize the channels, so we're not trying to do everything at once. So you can find on Instagram we are AirTrack app, because we want the Instagram to be more focused on the product, whereas our LinkedIn is more focused on the company, so AirAware Labs. And I mean, in physical terms, you can find us in London, and we're also very up for like in-person things. We want to get out to like run clubs. We want to support people with events. Any opportunity we have to help people reduce their exposure to pollution when they're at the most susceptible to it.
Awesome. Thank you for all you do. I'm excited to play around with the product. And if you need a beta tester for the mobile app, please definitely hit me up. I would love to use it and give you some honest feedback. And thank you so much for being here today, Louise, and cheers and best of luck.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good to meet you. Thanks so much.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.